And I'm going to start recording. So tell me what you guys' experience is with using the library databases. I started to smile because Deletta, you're right there in the library, so you don't
and I never use them.
Never use them.
It is a whole new world for me.
Great. I love introducing people to this whole new world because it's just so incredible. You know, I kind of ancient. I typed my, I went through all my educational experiences with a manual typewriter up until the point that I wrote my dissertation. When I actually wrote the dissertation on, I was in graduate school and they had they bought 2 computers. They were Xeroxes, I believe, and to use for word processing, which was like brand new at the time. And they stuck them up on the 4th floor of a building without elevators. And it was a locked door. And you know, I was at the University of Minnesota, which had probably, I don't know, 50 faculty and 50 to 100 graduate students. There were probably 300 composition classes being taught because so they needed all these graduate students. Anyway, so they bought 2 computers for these 2 group. And actually one of the things I did in that first year was teach a tech writing class using computers, which meant that those students had to go up to this place and use those computers that also were being used by the entire English faculty and all the graduate students. So obviously most of them did not. Anyway, so when I came here, they of course did not have the same software, so I had to learn the Radio Shack TRS-80 word processing, which luckily left soon. And then I learned Mac, and then I learned. So anyway, my point being that I've gone from, you know, no technology at all to a lot of technology. And it's just kind of incredible. My lifespan just really crosses that timeline. So, and Maddie, what have you been doing with library databases?
I mean, I use them more extensively as an undergrad, but I really haven't touched the UALR system yet.
Okay. And they're pretty much the same at every organization. It's a lot of time I've noticed that different libraries usually have the same interface. Usually the colors are changed, you know, to match the colors of the campus. But your major was biology as an undergraduate?
My undergraduate degree is in philosophy.
Oh, it was in philosophy?
Correct.
So how did you get into doing what you're doing now?
I begged and hollered and made people listen to me.
Okay. All right, so I actually sort of had planned this little process, and I was going to start. I think I'm going to just go ahead and do it, starting with Marlo, because what I wanted to do is show you just different facets of this process, and not necessarily find you things, although in the process of exploring this stuff, I did find some really good things. So I am going to share my screen. I'm going into, you can see my screen now, right? ULR.
Yes. Yes.
And it is not as easy to find the library as it used to be. It used to be one of the quick links, but it is now listed under academics. I think it's also listed under students. And then you have to be careful, go here. And in order to get into the library databases, you go to here and click on databases. They also have this quick search thing tool. There's something called, I can't remember what it's called. It's an EBSCO product, and you can look for things using quick search. And in fact, when I've asked library people to do sessions for me, they really highly recommend it. But to tell you the truth, I don't. What it does is it somehow selectively goes through all the EBSCO things out there and just gives you some information, but not other information. But it doesn't tell you that it's giving you some information and not.
What is the EBSCO?
Well, EBSCO is the company that does it. So anyway, you do a quick search, and you can as it says, it searches many library resources at once, and it can give you some information. And one of the reasons why people, I guess, they suggest is that you don't always have to log in. Anyway, I personally think it's better to just start with the databases. And if you don't know what you're looking for, you click on the databases A to Z link. They have on the right here these popular databases. I have often found students really liking using JSTOR, but what I try to do is discourage people from starting at JSTOR, because JSTOR is not actually a database. It is a storage place. And many humanities-based things are, in fact, included in JSTOR. But because whatever their business model, they do not give access to things. They have a big wall. There's a thing called a wall, which is the how long before the journal has agreed to allow the database to share their full text items. And JSTOR always has very long walls, meaning you can usually only get things that are 3 to 5 years old, and anything that is more recent than that, you cannot get because of this long permission wall. ProQuest Central is a really useful database. CNOL Complete is a nursing database, but I think the best way to get to them, well, there's two things. One is they've got these subject things, and I wanted to start with Marla's. Her idea was to look at rhetorical concepts being used in behavioral therapy. And so I started there by looking at psychology and seeing what they said to suggest. And once you start using these things, you can always skip this stance. I also was thinking about your topic, Maddie, and I really think you probably want to go to newspapers. And, oh, there we go. Have to remember to clear anything. And there's newspapers historical, but News 7. So, and that's what they recommend, and they always put a yellow box for those. Going back to psychology, or well, let's say Deletta, let's say education might be a good starting point. Because Deletta wants to talk about the quintillion and the liberal arts idea. So this tells you in here, you see JSTOR is one of them, and there are these education databases. But what I always do is start with the EBSCO databases, which is not trivial. There are, there are 191 databases, so there are a lot of databases. It is not as overwhelming as it seems because, in fact, most of these databases are owned by two companies. One company is EBSCO, and which has bought up all sorts of databases, and the other company is ProQuest Central, or ProQuest. I've been noticing there's a lot of ProQuest advertisements on NPR lately. So like they bought the dissertation abstracts database. So what it turns out is if you get into either the EBSCO groups or the ProQuest groups, you can find pretty much anything you want. So because Academic Search Complete starts with A, so it's right there. This is what I usually do. I click on Academic Search Complete. And it is an EBSCO database. You know it is because it says EBSCO host here up in the top. All EBSCO databases have this little thing, choose databases. And so these are all the EBSCO databases. So I haven't counted them, but you know, that 190, once you subtract these, I mean, there's probably 50 here, maybe more. So the MLA is part of it. The APA, which are the psychology ones, which are what I'm recommending Marlo start with. Communication and mass media complete is what I recommend for our discipline as a whole. So no matter, as long as if you're doing something in writing and rhetoric, always pick the two communication ones. And I can never remember which one is bigger. One's basically included in the other. You click on the little tab, which I can't read because your pictures are there. You click on the tab and it tells you from a merger of high quality EBSCO databases, communication mass complete and communication abstracts. Okay, so communication source is bigger than communication and mass media complete. But I always do both just to cover it. So we're going to look for they have something called newspaper source, but it is much more limited than that news stream that I will look at later. And this is roughly alphabetically ordered, but it's not always. I don't know why. What happened to the psychology ones? And because psychotherapy is a medical thing, this is probably, it's a good idea to include the medical ones. So what that means is when you search, all these databases will be included in it. And one of the things I recommend doing is, just as a starting point, before you do any further, just do some really obvious search. Just to see what you get. So we're looking at Marlowe's topic, which is, and you get, of course, 23,000 results. And because I did not limit the field, it tries to limit the field. So what we're getting are things that have writing, the word writing and the word therapy in the title. So it's trying to narrow it. Now, since they have these fields, you want to narrow it. And there is, and each of the databases has slightly different field names, but you don't have to memorize it or anything. Notice that one of the fields is author. So if you have the name of an author and you want to look that person up and see what that person has written. So for example, there is a person in psychology named Pennebaker who has developed a theory about using writing in therapy. And that's usually one of the first people that people will cite. If you wanted to change that to abstract and make the article be about his theory, you change it to abstract. And you'll find these articles. So what he advocates is using expressive writing in therapy. So, and I said it's got to be in the abstract, and so here it's in the abstract. So one of the things that I did when I was looking for her stuff, I did not look for Pennebaker, but I looked for writing and behavioral therapy. And I use them as subject terms. So subject terms they've always had subject terms in library organization. You know, any kind of book that is they give it subject terms. It's basically like tagging is now, or hashtagging. And so the database has certain subject terms, and sometimes also the author is asked to propose certain subject terms. So of course, by narrowing this to writing and behavioral theory, those are the subject terms, you definitely get the much more narrowed group. And here you see each item. These are the subjects. So we have all this therapy and we have writing. So in each one of these cases, there's going to be something about the use of writing for some kind of therapy. when you have the default organization in these databases is almost always relevance, but you can also change it to time. So you could have the newest at the top. And since I narrowed it pretty well, they're still going to be pretty relevant. If you haven't narrowed it very much, the relevant, changing it to time doesn't help a whole lot. Then there are all sorts of ways of limiting. So let's say, so apparently once I narrowed this, I've got everything from 1990 to 2020. Let's say I really want things just from the last 10 years. And that's got me down to 45. Chances are, this topic doesn't need to only be recent. Hope I didn't change anything. So I want to get rid of that limited. There are source types. So these are the source types that are in here. And note that most of them are pretty academic. I have 132 and 127 are academic. If I only want to look at dissertations are great sources because for references, for resources, because a dissertation person, they have to, read everything. So if you can find a recent dissertation on your topic, then, you can rely on them, and they've done all the research to find all the material. Of course, you're not doing a dissertation, so it may be more information than you want. You can narrow it by publication. So if you find something in a journal that you want to use, and then you can narrow all the way to it. You can narrow it by language. They have, I was looking the other day and I came across a whole article written in Turkish, which didn't do me a whole lot of good. Sometimes they are republished in English, but you can limit it to the language. You can limit it to methodology. You can limit to the location. Education is an interesting one because there's a lot of education research coming out of China. And, maybe you don't want to look at that. You want to just look at US research or something. One of the best things to find when you are searching, I managed to, let's go back here. Managed to lose somehow. Oh, that's what I did. One of the best things to find is an article that is a review. Oh. All right, so I have it back to a review, a relevance order. And I noticed that the second item here is a systematic review. If you can find a systematic review article or some kind of review article where especially like this, that covers your topic, you're in really good shape. Now, this one turned out to be not letting me. This one had very strict parameters for what would count in their review. And so it didn't talk about all the articles, but as it turned out, one of the articles that fit into their parameters was an article from 2000. And it was writing projects, lessening undergraduates' unique suicidal bereavement. And so it was a full article just dealing with writing and therapy. Note here, it doesn't have one of those PDF options here aside it. It does say get from another library or get full text. If it says only get from another library, sometimes students panic because that means you have to do interlibrary loan. Do not panic, because interlibrary loan, especially for articles, is the best thing ever. It's good for books as well. You just click on it and it takes you to the interlibrary loan request form, and it populates it, and it there are just a few things you have to do. It even populates my name because I had logged in under my UALR user ID. And then you just submit the request, and they will email you when they get it, and it's usually a day or two, because the library will the library they're getting from will just set, if it's an article, they'll just send it as another PDF for you. If it's a book, they will send it to you. They will ship it if you are within 25 miles of ULR. I think they're still doing that. That, of course, will take a little bit longer, but they're very helpful, and they are good. Their email is illuser, ILLUSER. So if you ever get an email from illuser, but if it says get full text, might as well click on that, and usually it works. Every once in a while, their links are not good, and I definitely recommend telling them, somebody at the library. But here, they've gotten it, and notice what they did. We left EBSCO, and now we're in a ProQuest database. So in theory, they've got it all intersected so that even if it's available in full text in a different product, you should be able to still get it as long as you're logged in with your ULR account. If it doesn't work, tell the people at the library. There's when we're done, I'll show you about that. Now, I don't think this, so far we were looking at things that I don't know that was actually her interest. I was looking at writing and therapy. but she's really more interested, because this is a rhetoric class, more interested in rhetoric and therapy. So let's see what happens there. Defensive rhetoric in psychiatrists. Rhetoric and the social constructions of sickness and healing. So I was doing this as a totally open search, but I'm not necessarily sure what subject I should do. So up here at the top in an EBSCO database is something called subjects. In ProQuest databases, I think it's called a thesaurus. And then what we have here is, I see they're sometimes called thesaurus. Each of the databases I had clicked has a different list. So let's just start with Academic Search Complete. No, let's do communications. And what this does is it tells you the subject terms they have determined. And so let's say you want to see if rhetoric is a subject term, probably is. And so here are all their subject terms that they think are sort of related to rhetoric. So obviously rhetoric is one of them. Notice there is a music in rhetoric, and there is Aristotle's rhetoric theory. One of these others has rhetoric and psychology, but I don't see that. So let's try Aristotle's rhetoric theory. And it says here are entered works about the classical description of the elements of successful communication as described by Aristotle. Broader terms would be communication ones and rhetoric. And other words, they might tell you narrower terms, and then used for. But so let's just try doing an advanced search with Aristotle. And therapy. So Aristotle's rhetoric as a subject term, and therapy also as a subject term. Too narrow. Let's leave that to alt text. Still probably too narrow. Let's see what I ended up doing. Oh, okay. I changed them both to alt text. So one of the things about any kind of searching here is you constantly have to go trial and error, broader, narrower, broader, narrower. And so I narrowed it too much, and now I broadened it by saying Aristotle rhetoric on alt text. And this turns out to be a great article for her purpose. Honoring our great grandparents towards a rhetorical analysis of family therapy. And so it turns out for subject, so Aristotle didn't come in, but probably, and if I'd used rhetoric, it might have been used. And then therapy is included there, so it probably would have used that. This paper argues that family is inherently and inescapably rhetorical activity, though its connections with rhetoric have remained largely ignored and the implications for practice explored. So as I understand it, this is exactly what Marlowe is really interested in. And then I actually looked at the article, and it talks about the enthymeme and a variety of other things. If you can find an article that's really valuable, then you could go into the article and use its resources. So Aristotle's all over it. Oh, Aristotle is in the text. So that's why all texts got Aristotle. And you see here that he talks about Aristotle, and here it's Quintilian, Socrates, and I mean, it's a really interesting article. And then if there are references that dealt with it, then, you know, that can send you off into finding those other things. Along the side here, there are tools that you could use. And you can email an article. So you click on email and it populates itself. And you can email the whole article. You can actually change, I think you can actually change who it's from, but you can send it to yourself with a subject and comments so you remember. You can put it in whatever kind of format you want it. So, you know, it defaulted to MLA. You can ask for HTML or PDF if that's there, if you can, you know, so you can do all these different things. You can also add it to a folder. So when I clicked it to add it to a folder, this little folder up at the top went open. And this is a temporary folder, but if you want to store it, you sign into my EBSCOhost and you can store all of your searches. Now, this is a folder for EBSCO searches, not other ones, but you can keep all these things. Unfortunately, or I'm not sure. Oh, okay, it has my password. When I do this at school, I can never do it because I can't remember what my password is. And so, so I'd saved this for Marlowe to show her and included it in there. And you look at my, it's like my emails. I have all sorts of folders that I've collected over the years from research, both for my projects and students' projects. So I definitely recommend taking advantage of that, of letting you do that folder. You can cite, use it to cite. And I've said that you can use whatever citation form that you want, just as long as you use one. I tend to use MLA because I conceive of rhetoric as a humanities discipline, although a lot of the stuff like composition and when research is stuff that's more empirically based, I might tend to use APA, which is American Psychological Association. They will create a almost correct citation for you, but it is almost always got an error or two, and so you should always double check. That one actually is correct for the APA. And yeah, and it took a while for them to update their MLA, but now it looks like their MLA is updated as well. You can print, save to your own computer, which of course is helpful. You can export into one of these softwares like BiblioNote or whatever. And you can, one of the things that happens when you're doing a search like this is you often forget what you've done. So in any given search period, it gives you all the search. And you can print the search history. You can save the search, which saves it into a folder like we were just looking at. You can refresh search results. You can set it up as, you can set up an alert so that if a new result happens on a standard search, it will continue to do it. So there's a lot you can do with that. The ProQuest databases have similar things. They're just in a slightly different format. Up here, there is a help, and there is a lot of help for the EBSCO databases. And there's also Ask a Librarian. The library has a chat thing, which during working hours, they have somebody sitting there who will, I mean, you sometimes have to wait a while, but usually if it's during library hours, even now, maybe even more now because they're just sitting there. You can ask them a question and they want you to ask them questions. I mean, you know, I tend to mostly bug them about technology things when things don't go right. And they will try to find something out. They will also do emails, etc. So that was along the top here for Ask a Librarian. And then there are also preferences. Let me stop here. Any questions?
No, I'm just excited and can't wait to get in there and play.
Yeah. Undergraduates sometimes get really frustrated with this because it's not like it's a magical thing. And one of the things that's important to remember, the search in these databases is not like searching in Google, because Google is designed to try to find something that is relevant and to assume that maybe you meant something else and correct the spelling, etc. This does not do it that way. You have to find the right search terms because it will only look for the terms that you have put in there. But if you find the right ones, you can do that. So I'm back at the home thing, and I thought, so Maddie is interested in the rhetoric being used in the New Green Deal, which it turns out, well, here's a, we'll just, so because it's such a recent thing, I thought it would be good to look at news. And newspaper source is an EBSCO database, and it is somewhat limited. It says here for select US and international newspapers. the US news stream is much bigger. So like when I'm looking for examples out in the world, I Google to find the examples, but so many of the newspapers now have paywalls. You know, they'll let you see maybe 1 or 2 articles for free, and then after a while they want you to pay. And so I'll do that to find an article, but then I'll go in here to get the get it. And you see here, it is a ProQuest database. ProQuest is a lot prettier, I think, than EBSCO. But they have the same thing, change database or add database. And here are all the ProQuest databases. So notice they have a coronavirus research database and an ebook. They're a big source for ebooks. And they have a lot of humanities things. They have ERIC, which is also included in ProQuest. I'm sorry, in EBSCO. Because ERIC is a government. It's it's part of the Department of Education. And they also include Medline, because I think Medline is owned by, I think it's part of the National Institutes of Health. But they also, they also have something called ProQuest Central, which is kind of like all their ones together. And it actually includes this news stream, I think. Yes, so it includes US News Stream, which was what I typed to begin with. So if you want, you could say, I'm just going to use all ProQuest, not just the news stream one. Where does ProQuest Central start? There. And they give you basic search, but there's also advanced search, which gives you similar to EBSCO. And notice they also give you publications, which in most of the EBSCO ones also will give you. So one of the things that is, I think, really an important thing to do when you in becoming involved in a discipline is to find out which database report includes your the journals that you like to use. So even though this includes 17,000 journals, there are actually a few journals that are not necessarily included. So let's do an advanced search for New Green Deal and rhetoric. And Michelle has just entered. So we can start with just in anywhere. The ProQuest databases have something that I think is kind of useful, and anywhere except full text. So full text is the most open, But so anywhere except full text means it's not just anywhere, it's in one of these other things, of which there are quite a lot. So we'll do that. And you can limit to full text, but I do not recommend doing that because it is so easy to get it elsewhere if, you know, from interlibrary loan, and you'll just lose things. But you certainly might want to limit to peer reviewed given some topics. But Maddie's topic, the New Green Deal and the rhetoric being used, you know, it's just a recent thing. It was Octavia Cortez. What is her full name? Octavia Cortez. AOC proposed it in February 2019, which seems like 1,000 years ago, but so there's not a whole lot of peer-reviewed stuff about it, although it would be interesting. So let's just not limit to peer review. And you get 93 results. This was interesting to me. I did this last night. So this term, the Green New Deal, is not just from her thing. So somewhere in 1980, they started talking about it. So these blocks are by year. So just out of curiosity, let's see what the old ones are. And then you see that it's just the text, although let's keep it by relevance. But look at these. So these are the ones from 80 to 89. So those aren't that relevant. And notice what they do there. And let's see. So this is the 2000s to 2009. So apparently in 2000 to 2009, they did start talking about Green New Deals. So you see that in a couple of these articles. So I thought that was just kind of an interesting thing. But going back to ours, and we are, let's say, oh, so this is, we just want to do from 2010 to 2020. That narrows it to 40. And notice the source type that is here. So there are scholarly journals that are talking about it. But not really, because we did it kind of large in our search. I think we need to narrow our search so that and so with ProQuest, it's modify the search. So let's see what happens when we narrow it to the abstract. That gives us 51 results from 85 to 20. And if you narrow it to 2010 to the present, you get 22 results. To be fair, Green New Deal rhetoric has surfaced before. So you're going to see some things about rhetoric, about the rhetoric of it. Now, by forcing it into Green New Deal and rhetoric, we're getting articles about the Green New Deal rhetoric. But if we modify the search and we only look at Green New Deal, you get an awful lot. Of course, again, that's all from back to 1920. And we really just want 2019 . What? Oh, I see what I did. And so even narrowing it to 2019 and 2020, we have an awful lot. But if you look at what the source is, you can see how it breaks down. So trade journals would be an interesting thing to look at. So we're talking, let's say trade journals from the oil industry. What do you think they're going to be saying about the Green New Deal? Probably it's a stupid idea. So that would be an interesting thing for you to narrow it to. So these are energy trade publications. And, you know, they have a certain point of view. That might be a really interesting way for you to approach your project, Maddie, is to see what do the trade deals say. You definitely, so it's interesting that scholarly journals would have something already. Certainly interesting to look at. So, you know, American Planning Associate Issues in Science and Technology. These are scholarly areas that definitely have interest in this, but they may not. That may not be that important to your particular topic. So you may decide to limit to so you want to include news, include feature commentary. I'm not sure we need to get into that detail. Source type. Okay, that's where I need it to be. So you might just want to do newspapers and trade journals and nothing else, which gets you down to 601 results. And, you know, if you exclude, let's say exclude the trade journals for now, you can see this. It looks like you can probably exclude, just get it down to English. And so that would be the way that you would go about narrowing it to it. Going into the news stream directly would have just given you the newspapers. So that's why I went the other way, just for you to see where you are. Hi, Michelle, can you hear? All right, so let me, so I also wanted to talk a little bit about Diletta's topic. What I'm trying to do in each of the ones, and this is why I started with Marlowe's, even though she wasn't there, is I wanted to show you guys different strategies, different tools. The ProQuest tools databases have all the same things that the EBSCO databases do. So with Diletta's interested in quintillion and the liberal arts. I think this is a good one to start with the Google search. Because it's such a narrow topic that you're going to probably get more academic things anyway. And it kind of gets you to some really good articles. So the top thing that comes up is the virtue of liberal arts, quintillion and character education. So it is an article, whoops, I lost my Zoom. I lost my screen part. There we go. So it tells you that this is an EBSCO article, and it says, so all you're getting is the beginning of it. Well, so what you've done is you found an article, and you can use the library database to see if we have it. And actually, this is probably one of those cases where the quick search helps. So I'm going to select the title. I'm going to go back to the library. Where is it? Oh, and use the quick search. And lo and behold, it's in our library. It's in the database is education source. And it says here you can get the full text. And I'm not quite sure why it's taking so long. but it, and it turns out it's in, this journal is included in a ProQuest database. And the interface is a little bit different. Where's my Google search? Okay. Looking down here, this looked like it might be interesting, but it's the U.S. Nevada, Las Vegas Law School. It's a legal journal, which is kind of maybe not what you're interested in. I thought this looked pretty interesting. 7 liberal arts hoax. Now it's in JSTOR, which UALR has. This is a perfect use of JSTOR. Now, here's an article. The article is from 1978. So I saw this and I had no idea what the 7 liberal arts were. Does anybody know?
No.
So the trivium is grammar, logic, and rhetoric. And that's actually kind of what Quintilian talked about. Although this whole thing covers a lot about Quintilian. And then the other 4, the quadrivium, are, I wrote it down somewhere so I would remember. They're geometry, mathematics, music, and astronomy. And but actually, even with the negative kind of, the fact that it's a critique, it actually turns out to be kind of an interesting piece. Reproducing virtue, Quintilian imitation and rhetorical education. So this is just about, should sound familiar. Now, again, what this is doing, this is the homepage for a journal called Advances in the History of Rhetoric. So that, finding something like that is really interesting. That actually is the name of a journal that I had not heard of. So I'm going to copy it. I'm going to see. Log in to gain access to this result. I guess because I was already logged in. So here it is, Advances in the History of Rhetoric, Reproducing Virtue, Quintilian Imitation, and Rhetorical Education. So I'm going to show you another thing you can do. So you find a journal that looks like it might be interesting. And you can click on it. Notice it's a hot link. So I did. So now they have apparently 1,117 articles from that journal. That's what comes up in this new list. But so we can search in it. So let's see. I don't know. just see what happens. I'm not sure if that box. Okay, so it narrowed it to articles in this journal that deal with the journal, that are in the journal that somehow cover liberal arts and quintillion. So I'm still in this discovery service. That's what this quick search is called. So database, complementary index. Huh. I'm not sure. So let's see if let's see if the communication source includes it. So match any words for a title. So Journal for the History of Rhetoric. I'm not sure it's the same one. It's amazing, all these advances in the history. So these are the journals that are actually covered. Advances in the history. I think this might be it. It was changed to Journal for the History of Rhetoric. See, it's a yeah. So this was Advances in the History. It was located Advances in the History of Rhetoric, and this year they changed it to Journal for the History of Rhetoric. And it was published in 2016. But this year, apparently, they changed it to Journal for the History of Rhetoric. And it is in communication source. So one of the things you can do, you search within, like I said, search within this publication, or, well, and so then the field came up, and well, let's see what they do for thesaurus in their thesaurus. Notice they call that. So term contains liberal arts. So liberal arts is not a term that is used in this journal. So you can't use it as a subject search. So you might do it as, and notice I put quotation marks around it. It could be author supplied keywords. Let's see if that ever, no results found. Let's see about abstract. And so we get 2 articles. it really should have come up with our article that we were looking at. Let's just say all text. And there it did come up with it. So I'm going to say that this is probably enough for tonight. Michelle, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, okay. So I am recording this, so all the stuff that you missed, you can see in the recording.
Thank you. We had a death in the family, so we were visiting family, and then I hopped on as soon as I left. I'm sorry.
And if you will, well, I'll touch base with you later. So what are the things that we went over? A lot of different things. And one about using the subject areas when in that articles and databases and narrowing it to that, picking an EBSCO database, then expanding it, using search terms and being real flexible about search terms, opening and kind of and shutting, using the fields as a way of narrowing it, and being flexible. There's lots of ways to limit by date, by language, by country, etc. And then all the tools on the side that you can use, and sort of the understanding that there are these big collection of databases by EBSCO and by ProQuest, and that you can search multiple databases within the corporation at the same time. Learning to use the thesaurus or subject terms to try to, if what you're doing just intuitively doesn't seem to work, check the subject terms and see, what it is that you ought to be using. And also realizing that you can search within a publication. If you find a journal and that is included in a database, and search within it as a narrowing. Another thing is if you can find a really good source, like a review of the literature on that topic, that's really helpful. And also being aware of the just different types of publications that these things all include. And depending on your topic, different things may be helpful. Oh, and finally, what I did with Diletta's topic was I started it in Google because it was a narrow enough topic that the kinds of stuff that Google would find, wouldn't be so as random as a lot of Google stuff, and use that as a narrowing in. And once you find some of these useful sources, then you can go further. So I know that's a lot to take in. And I I'll send, as I explore these things for people, I will send some articles as I find them, just because it may be hard to find them again. So.
And then if we have questions, I know we could always email you, but we could show up for the Zoom meeting next week.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay.
And don't be afraid to ask the librarians. They want to help. And
you can get into the first floor of the library, and they are there. So you don't have to wander around and get locked in stairwells.
Y'all don't tell everybody that happened.
Michelle, Maddie got lost in the stairwell.
I was just wondering if that was an actual thing
Because
that
apparently,
happened.
well, I don't know if they changed it, but it now says you can't go on the stacks. You have to request.
I feel like I might have been directly
outside door.
Yeah,
I've been directly responsible for that.
the first elevator over there has big signs on it now that says the 3rd, 4th, and 5th floors are locked and ask the librarian for assistance. So
Maybe it was there, you just didn't notice it. Or maybe you triggered a need for communication.
I noticed the day they showed up.
So we know when she came. Oh, everything's so crazy.
It is.
Okay, so yeah, email me, email the librarians, ask, and the most important thing is to have fun with it.
How do I go back to watch the recording? I'm not very tech savvy.
It has to be processed. Zoom processes it, and then I will upload it to YouTube, and then I will send it out in Blackboard.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think I'll have to edit it because I think I remembered when to turn on the recording and when not. The editing sometimes takes me a while, but by tomorrow it should be up. Okay. All right. See you later.
Good night.
Night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.